Hey, today's guest is a survivor of child abuse and domestic violence. Today, she aims to share inspirational strategies to help others find encouragement and live their best authentic life. Let's welcome Erika Blanchard.
Thank you so
Is
much
that
for having me.
You're
I'm so excited to be
welcome.
here.
Thank you, thank you. And I'm always a little reluctant with the names. I'm always like, did I
hmm
say that name correctly?
Names are
Right?
tricky. Yeah,
Yeah,
names
well,
are
welcome.
tricky. You did great.
Welcome to Storytime, and thanks for coming on the podcast. And you also do podcasts as well. So this is
I do.
it's funny, right? Like you interview, and it's that way that she might correct
Yeah,
me.
yeah. It's a great community, but it's just funny how many of us are out here.
Yeah, but listen, it's a matter of getting the story out there, our stories that matter. So once
100%.
again, I want to thank you for coming onto the podcast. And
Absolutely.
let's start with, you have a lot of things going on here too. Let's start with, well, I shouldn't laugh, but let's start with, you had mentioned, well, you want start with what you want to start with, because you are a podcaster yourself. So you'd start with what you want to start with, and then I'll feed into it. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll start with what you brought up first, which was my child abuse and
Yeah,
domestic violence.
thank you.
Yeah, I am a survivor from witnessing domestic violence with my mother and my father, but he was also very violent toward me and my siblings. We escaped that chaos. It was not just physical, but it was mental. He would like take our toys and break them. He would watch inappropriate movies in front of us. He would do just things to control our minds, have us really fearful. Uh, I then got in a relationship, had two children in high school, and then found myself, we actually separated, young love. I felt like I could do it on my own, didn't need him. Raised my two children by myself, found myself in a relationship he was my, like a best friend of mine who became my partner. And he just became viciously violent. Abuse. I remember the first time the abuse happened. I refused to take him somewhere, and I just remember my head hitting the seatbelt,
Oh
and
my
it just
gosh.
hit 4 times. After that, it was just repetitively like not knowing where I was at, jumping out of bushes in my
Oh my
car, just stalking, so vicious. I finally escaped with my two kids. We went to a shelter.
gosh.
Um, there he found me there, and I don't know if you know this, or you've interviewed other people where the abuser will send people into the shelter as if they're victims, and they'll find their victims of who they've previously abused. And that was my story.
Oh
I
my
just couldn't get
goodness.
it. I could not leave this guy. There was nothing I could do. Finally, I just said, whatever. If you're gonna do whatever you want to do, if you're gonna jump out a bush, you're gonna shoot me, you're gonna do whatever you're gonna do, just hurry up and do it, because I can't live like this anymore.
Terrible. So you were really giving up hope and
I did. I
collapsing
felt,
and kind of caving into this evil person.
yeah. I just remember one time there was abuse happening in our home, and my son was watching TV, and he loved to, his favorite thing to do was, my ex was to grab me by my throat and stomp on my head. And so he pulled my neck over to the side of my shoulder and just pounced on me. And I remember it happening previously several times. It happened at least 2 or 3 times before that. And I remember saying, just try to survive this. Just try to survive this. And I'm looking at my older son and I'm saying, because he needs me.
Oh my
And that
God. This is in front of
moment,
your children.
the door was cracked. Well, my kids knew, but the door was cracked, and
Mhm.
he's, trying to eat a cereal, watching TV. And the last time I thought, just take me out already. I hope I just,
Horrible. What a horrible place to
it
be.
ends. And that was the moment that I decided to leave. So I'm packing, and I'm like slowly putting money away. I'm slowly putting things away, because I'm just like, I have to figure this out. And if I rather die running away than die staying. And then I don't know if he had a feeling. I don't know if he knew something was happening. But that night before I was planning to leave, he comes home drunk, throws me against the wall, is beating me. My kids
Terrible.
aren't home, thankfully. I
Mm.
had take them downstairs to be with this lovely lady who used to watch them for me, and began to sexually assault me. He knocks out. The next morning, I pack my stuff, get my kids because he's,
Okay,
hungover. He's knocked out.
good.
I put him in the car. I I look upstairs to say, like, just mental note, I'm leaving. It's done. And he's at the window. He throws a
Oh,
can, shatters my window, and I just took off, and
oh,
that was it.
thank God you
And
did that.
that was the beginning of my forever because I was gone. I was not afraid of him anymore. I think I just mentally figured if it's something bad is going to happen to me, it was going to happen regardless whether I stayed or I
Mm,
ran. So I rather run.
absolutely. At least stand a chance
Hmm.
by running.
Hmm.
Now circling back, um, if you could, what advice would you give somebody in this situation? Like where you went, like when you finally got out, what would you, I mean, you can finish telling your story, but before we get too
Well,
far,
no,
and I don't want to forget about this part of it.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think that's
right?
a great
Yeah,
question because just telling the story, you're kind of putting yourself back into that
of
energy.
course. Yes. And we, yes. I,
Yeah, and when you tell the story, you kind of feel like you're empowered, but you also remember, dang, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that.
exactly. It's the questions that I'm kind of, yeah,
And I
yes,
think
you lived through this.
that, yeah, I think what I would want to tell somebody who was in a situation like that, who's
Mhm.
going through the battery, I would totally tell them that everything, as cliche as it sounds, it's all going to develop the way that it's supposed to
Mhm.
because it's so scary to be in that moment of running away.
Mm.
It's scarier than just staying and getting the abuse. It
Mm.
really is because
Now,
when
why
the
do you think? Why is that? Is it finances? Do you think it's finances?
well, I
That's
think for me it was I knew the hits would stop, right? I
Mhm.
knew where he was at. I knew what he was doing. I knew if I was there, he was calm. I knew if he knew where my whereabouts, he
Mhm.
wasn't trying to hurt me by looking for me. It was the running away that I didn't know where he was at, and that was scarier for me.
Mm.
I didn't know if he was gonna jump out of a bush. I didn't know if he was gonna, which he loved to do.
Yeah, and then you
I
got
didn't know if
that
he was
more. You
gonna,
got more problems. They have to
yeah.
find you. I
So
get that. Yeah.
so
Wow.
for that first year, it was so chaotic, and it's literature. There's evidence where the first weeks of leaving, even the first year of leaving a abuser, is the most dangerous time for
Okay.
a survivor because they're sitting and planning, they're preparing what they're going to do. And he was that kind of guy. He would get drunk or he would get high or whatever he was doing, and he was planning what he was going to do next. And it didn't
Mm.
matter to him how he was going to get to me.
Crazy.
And I got enough courage to run away to a friend's house who wasn't afraid of him. And
Mhm.
so when he would come to the house, she was like, bring it on. And I think it was in
Yes.
those
Thank
moments
God. Yeah.
that he finally stopped because he was like, she really got people that have her back. And
Mhm.
that's when I started being able to rebuild my life because not even shelters could save me from him.
Really?
Nothing. Yeah, because they would kick me out for being a nuisance.
Oh my goodness. So in other words, when this happens to a lot of people, there's really nowhere to go? Is that what you're
It
saying?
feels like that. It
It
feels
feels
like
like
I
that.
get
Okay.
because there's always like a degree what kind of abuser you have, right? The
Mhm.
abuser I had didn't care about anything. He didn't
Mhm.
care if he would get caught. He knew he would get out. He didn't
Mhm.
care if there was a restraining order because it's just a piece of paper. He
Mhm.
didn't care. For him, the object was me. And that was the only thing that
So
he
yeah.
cared about. There was absolutely nothing you could do. And then there's others who can follow a certain protocol and won't do that, or they're masking, or they're,
Yeah, I think a lot of, I'm saying women, but
Mhm.
'cause this is our, this is the story, but there's a lot of men that are abused as well, and that's coming
Mhm.
forth more now, right, than you've heard in the
Mhm.
past. I think a lot of men were afraid to talk about it, even worse than women.
Right.
But, moving ahead with this, I think a lot of women, are afraid financially because they don't have that money to go and put themselves in a place or go somewhere far away from these people to get some kind of help. And I think that's a huge problem because it would be for anybody. If you don't have the money to
A
go, how are you going? It's only going to take you so far.
absolutely.
The gas in the car is only going to take you down the street where they can still get a hold of you. So this
Right.
is something that, it I mean, it's terrible. It's just a terrible, terrible law.
And I think, you make it makes a lot of sense what you're saying because I didn't have money. I never was worried about it, but I didn't have
Mhm.
money to leave in that sense. I still
Right.
had to stay in the community. I
Yeah.
still had to use free shelters and resources. And so it wasn't like the shelter was not trying to help me. It was we can't jeopardize the safety of 30 other women and their children
Mm.
because this dude is not cooperating.
Yeah, he was
And
making it
and
miserable.
yeah, and
So
I
oh,
understand.
wow, okay, so now I'll go forward again. You're like so
Now
now
it's good, I could keep up.
yeah, well, this way we could, recap what you're thinking, right? Alright, so now we get away from him, right? You said once you drove down the street with the kids, the broken glass, we drive away.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
now
So
we could pick up
now
from
I'm
there.
heading to
Yeah.
my friend's house. I'm like, dude, I'm leaving. I really don't want. She was like, come over here. I'm not afraid. She knew him previously. She's like, I'm not afraid of him. You know, I got you. So we go. There's a night. We hear this car keep like going around in the block, right? And I look outside and it's him with the trunk open. And he was waiting for me to come out so that he can throw me in the trunk.
Oh my god.
And so I looked and I seen that it was his mom's car. And so for the first time, I just called her and I said, "Hey, your son stole the car. Report
Oh.
it." And she's like, stole my car, right? And
Mm.
that was how I find it. And I think because
Yeah,
you're
that
so
worked. Now you had
secluded in the
something on
community,
him.
that worked, right?
Smart, smart move,
And
girl.
she's like, if you don't bring my car back, blah blah blah, whatever she must have told
Yeah.
him. And finally, because I think it was because I started talking about it, I
Mm.
started telling people, and he was like, of course he's mad. Like, you're showing people the
Yeah.
truth. This is not okay. But he eventually left me alone. And
Thank
so
God. He found another victim probably.
yeah, he started going out. I was like, you're single, you're free, do whatever you want. Go. Fast forward about 5 months later, he's back at, I want this, I want her back, right? And for me, I thought that I had already set up my life. I got a job where they paid for my housing, I
Perfect.
had my kids, everything getting put together. My fear told me have a conversation with him because it's better to know where he's at all times and having some kind of connection to you. And I don't advise this for many people. This worked for me because he was the type that would walk into my jobs, try to get me fired, pull my shirt down in front of people, hit me in front of people, pull
Mm.
my hair in front. So I thought if he knew where I was at, he knew I was single, he knew I was in school, I have a job, he would leave me alone. So that was my goal, was as long as he
Thank you.
had some kind of information on me, he
Right.
wouldn't show up at my kid's school, he wouldn't
I
be in
get
these,
you. You fed him a
right?
little something to keep him so he wasn't starving, so to speak.
Right,
Yeah, I get
exactly.
it. I totally get that. That understand.
And thankfully, that little bit gave him enough to
Mm.
move on with his life. He was still partying, doing his thing, meeting girls, doing whatever it was. Lost touch, right?
How about the
I mean,
kids? What
the
happened?
kids were good. He never, and
Okay.
he's not their biological father, so he couldn't
Okay,
go to
good.
their
I
school.
mean,
But in my mind, I'm thinking my kids don't need that because he's so impulsive, right? I'm
right,
thinking
right,
he
right.
doesn't need,
Yeah.
I rather be his touchstone than him trying to figure out a way to find me in their school or whatever, right?
Got you. Okay, good.
Thankfully, that never happened. So fast forward about a year later, we touch base again, and he's sick. And he's like, Erica, I really need you to help me. And I said, for what? Right? Like, ugh, why?
Mm.
So come to find out, he has this infection in his leg. We take him to several hospitals. He's His infection went from his ankle to his knee to his hip. And so what was happening, I ended up taking him out of these, low income community hospitals, take him to a specialty hospital. And he has a flesh eating disease that's not just eating the meat, but it's eating his bones.
Oh my God, I've heard of these crazy diseases.
And
Wow.
he is a candidate for amputation.
Wow. Talk about revenge. I mean, I should say it like
Right.
that, but
Karma, right?
what do they call karma? Oh my God.
So like they're talking to me, I mean, this man, from the moment we started his going to doctors,
Mhm.
he lost about 40 pounds. He's pale. He looks like he's dying, which he was. They took him to the operating table. Thankfully, they saved his leg. He has open wounds. The infection is so bad that they can't close the wounds from his ankle, his calf,
Wow.
to higher up his hip, toward his thigh to his hip. Fast forward, I'm taking care of him the whole time because his mom can't see the sight of blood. I am stuffing his wounds with gauze. When he finally was able to stop, that kind of paramedical stuff where you're,
Yep.
gauzing and all that, he is getting better. His infection is over. He's just rehabilitating. And he said, how I remember, rewind before I end this part of the story. He in the hospital right before we take him to the special list, he's in so much pain that he's like, Erica, you can't fix anything. You're useless. And I'm like, there you are.
Oh,
There's
he
this
came
guy.
back.
He grabs his cane and right in my back. And I just fall for it. And I look at him and I said, you're never gonna change. Even on your deathbed, you're never gonna
Oh,
change.
he's evil, evil man.
Evil. Fast forward, he's better, right? I forgave him because of his how sick he was, right? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I wonder if you should speak. Can you get a little closer to the mic, maybe? Is that your mic? Is it in your ear? That's fine.
Okay. Can you better?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So fast forward now we're, he's rehabilitating, all that happened. I can't forget what he's done because of course you have all these emotions. You're trying to
Yes.
help
Yes.
somebody. I'm thinking, well, maybe he's changed. Maybe this is a sign for him to be a better man. After the hit with the cane, I'm
Oh.
like, this man is he's never gonna change. This is him. This is his character. This is
Mhm.
this man. So he's like, maybe we should get back together. Thank you for everything you've done. And I said, you want to do me a favor? And he's, I'll do anything because you saved my life. I'll do anything. I said, never, ever talk to me again.
Yeah.
When you see me on the street, pretend you don't even know me.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can
That's
do.
the
When you
best
see
favor you
my
could have done
kids,
for you. Oh my
exactly, don't
God.
ever come. And that's how I escaped him. Never.
Okay.
I've seen him on the street. He's never approached me. He's
Okay.
never talked to me.
So we got
And
rid
that
of
doesn't
him. The
that story
devil.
is not for everyone. Like that shouldn't be
Huh?
anybody shouldn't go back. That story is not for anybody, everybody. They shouldn't go back. They shouldn't help their abuser. That was
But you know what?
what helped
You
me.
don't, some people could say all day long, I would never do that. And we could think I would, oh my God, why would you? But you know what? We're not in your shoes. And we
Mhm.
have a tendency to think, you know, knee jerk reaction would be, I would never do that. But I've learned never say never
Never, never.
because you
Yep.
never know, and hey, it is what it is. You did what you did. You might have felt horrible that you didn't do it. I mean, who
Hmm.
knows? But you did it.
Hmm.
It's done. And now the past. So now he's gone and you don't see
And
him
so
anymore, right?
I don't. And so
Okay.
my life came full circle. I ended up working in mental health,
That's what I was
helping
gonna
women.
ask you about your mental health career because I saw that, right?
Yeah, with
Yes. Well,
domestic violence
you
and
definitely had experience.
I did. I
I
did.
don't mean to make that as being funny, but you do. No.
No,
Yeah.
100%. And so
Yeah.
I made it work for me, right? Like if I have this experience and I know, I feel like I have a gift of talk. I have a gift of gabber. Like
Well,
I
we
love to
do.
talk.
That's
I
one thing
love
we
to
have.
meet. I love to meet people. I love to interact and
Mhm.
see how I can help you get to your best authentic life. That's my goal. I started getting into the mental health field. And then I eventually evolved from working with domestic violence and child abuse survivors to just mental health. And the majority of my clients are men. And so just speaking to them, letting them know that their mental health is okay. Because the way that I looked at my abusive relationship and even my relationship with my father is they had some severe mental health issues, and
Mhm.
this is how they coped, right? Regardless of, I mean, that's a surface, right? And a surface explanation as to why some do what they do. But for me, because I'm a boy mom, I have 4 boys,
Oh,
it was
wow,
important. I
congratulations.
do, thank
Yeah,
you.
nice.
It
Yeah, oh,
it
yeah.
it was so important to me to make sure that they were educated about their mental health. They understood that
Mhm,
there was ways to deal with it and to talk about it without violence and without aggression, right?
mhm,
And this, and more, I think more importantly is that I have children of color. You know, my kids are, I have some that are Mexican, and I have my 2 youngest ones from my current husband, they're mixed. They're
mhm,
African American and Mexican. So if anything, that for me was a priority, that they used their words and their verbiage, and they understand the vocabulary of expressing how they feel and what's important for them, their needs and their wants, because that's not encouraged. You know,
mm.
men are not encouraged to talk about their feelings. So that's really what I dove deep into, not just as a survivor of abuse, but really trying to educate the community of how this can be preventable. It
Yes.
could, we could find resources to help, and it
You
always
break the
starts
cycle. You break that cycle,
right,
and
right,
it's
right.
educating your children and working with your children. That was a smart move because
Yeah.
what
Thank
they've
you.
seen, right? What they've seen
Hmm.
and growing up and in society, you educated them. It's a good thing for you. It's good that you did that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank
Good for
you.
you. Strong.
And so now I'm in my PhD studies, and I'm in my 3rd year of getting my clinical psychology degree, or my doctorate. And then we started our podcast where we really talk about mental health, not just in the aspect of a mom,
Mhm.
but really talking about like what's challenging as a husband and being in a relationship. He's an engineer. I'm a mental health provider. So he's like, we're like 2 different, total different way of thinking, trying to combine and create a life together. So that's fun too.
Yeah. So, so you do your podcast. Well, let's just switch gears here for a second. So you do your podcast. Um, so on your podcast, your husband's
Hmm.
involved with you. You're
Hmm.
remarried now, right? You said you're remarried.
Yes.
So your
Yes.
husband's involved with you, and this is what you're talking about is relationships. I'm assuming children too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So our
Tell us a little
podcast
bit about your
focuses,
podcast. Let's go with that. Yeah. Instead of me
my
feeding
podcast.
instead of me telling you what you're doing.
I think
Wait,
you're doing great.
what you doing? It's like, well, you tell me what you're doing.
Right. So my podcast is, it talks a little bit about everything. So my pod, I really, I don't know if you've noticed between you and I, but I love to dialogue. Like my, how we had discussed, narrative therapy is like the
Yeah,
number one support in people. Just sharing your story
yeah,
is so therapeutic,
yep,
and it's a resource for others, right?
yeah.
So everyone always asks me, so how did you end up meeting your husband? So I was single for many years,
So you got a
went back to
story.
church. Yeah, I have another story. Went back to church and I met my husband. And I never thought I was going to marry again, because I'm okay. You know, I just want to be, or not, he's my first marriage, but be in a relationship again. And when I met him, he was my kid's tutor. He loved my kids. And so we just have a great bond. But within our marriage, we noticed struggles, and we're pretty healthy mentally. I've got a lot of healing. I
Mhm.
went to therapy. You know, I was able to use um my trauma into triumph. You know, I was
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to
yeah. Well,
see those things.
that's how you do it. That's how you heal. You also heal with
Right.
that. The more you talk about it, you'll
Yeah.
go again
And
with
you
that narrative therapy because it's a great thing to be able to do. Can you
well, you
hear
find
me?
purpose.
Is our speaker system? Are you okay? Can you hear me? Because I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing your. I don't know if I can.
No, I can hear you. I'm just
I
making
just
sure
heard.
it stays in.
I was like, it's like
I
technical
like it. You're
difficulties.
funny.
Oh, all right. Well, this is
Um,
good stuff. Yeah, you got some good things going on.
Thank you. So our podcast, we focused on, you know, communication, his mental health. I really made an episode of just talking about his mental health,
Mhm.
because it's so unusual to allow men to really speak. And I think for us, being a boy mom, it's so important. So I thought, you know, let's do a podcast. But we would be asked a lot, like, how did you meet your husband, and how do you guys
Yeah,
work so well together, and how did
yeah.
you, and so we talk about blended families, how to parent adults,
Great.
right?
So
Are
let's
you
spin it in.
supposed to
Let's bring
parent?
it into this podcast. How'd you meet your husband?
Well, I met him. I actually went back to church. I found a church I loved. I was really interactive in the church.
Oh, the church. You
Never,
met him in the church?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I never thought I was gonna date. And here came this guy. And I was like, go away. Leave me alone. And he ended up just being such a cool guy. He was just so nice and so
Yeah.
sweet and
Nice to hear
really,
that. Yeah.
and that's a weird, like I never met a guy so genuinely kind, like just never, he very even. Like he was always, nothing really upset him.
Mhm.
I mean, now, I mean, of course he gets upset, but I was so used to chaos
A
and
hothead. Yeah.
impulsivity and yeah,
Yeah. Always
and
like a combative.
people leaving and yeah, like, and so to meet somebody so genuinely just level-headed, it was
Mm.
weird.
Wow.
At some point, like I even talk about this to people where sometimes I felt like I had to break them. Like there's a mean guy in there somewhere. Let me
Oh, well,
find him,
that's we call that waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's like, wow, he's too nice. Something's gotta be wrong. Something's gotta be wrong with this guy.
Yeah, what
Gotta
can
be
I
something,
irk him
you
with?
know. And you wait and you
So
look.
and I'm an Aries, so I always want to test things, right? So I'm like,
Yes. Oh my God.
would this make you mad?
Oh, that's
Like,
too funny. Yeah. No, and
and
I'm
he's a
Cancer,
Taurus.
so we're always like, we're nurturing, right? We're always trying to like
Yeah,
we don't see the bad things. We're like, "Oh, they're just so nice. They're so sweet." But no,
right,
there's
right.
that bad side. And then there's
Yeah,
always, when's it coming out? When's that monster coming out of the closet?
right.
I
And I
know.
mean, he gets frustrated, but not in the magnitude of what I'm used to.
Yeah.
He was such a he's a boy dad. Like he loves being a dad with
I
all
thank
four of
God you
my
found that
kids.
man.
He is phenomenal.
That
So,
was a gift from God. No.
amen. Like for real. Like and I remember telling God, like I would pray and say, just make him go away because I'm not ready for this. And there was three times that I broke up with him. By the fourth time, he told me I was praying and I could feel myself, if I keep praying for this, he's gonna take him away. And he's
Mm.
probably gonna get tired of it.
Well, yeah, you're right.
And
Sometimes we get what we wish for. We don't always
mhm.
want it, really. So
And
you're
my
a sheep of the
husband
week.
said
Mm.
on the fourth time, he said, if you broke up with me again, I was gonna leave.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, I don't think I want him to leave. I think I'm just so scared to be happy because I don't know what peace looks like.
Because you're
That
afraid. And that's
Oh,
another thing. You're
100%.
afraid to be happy because you said, "I'm gonna be happy and I'm gonna lose my happiness." And that's a
Mhm.
very common thing, and that's another whole podcast
Mhm.
on relationships, right? And
Right.
that's the whole thing that a lot of us suffer from that. And
Yeah.
especially after being in relationships that were so toxic that you do become tainted, right? Waiting for,
Sorry. Mhm.
like you said, the other shoe to drop, or you meet them, it's like, "Oh, they're so nice." And especially when you meet multiples that
Mhm.
they start out a certain way, and it's like, "Oh, it's a second date or it's a third date, it's gonna get," and sure enough, on the third date, they say, "Oh, yeah, I was waiting for this to happen. I was waiting for this one." And
That's
it's
it.
wrong. Some people say, "Oh, you can't always think that way." Well, you can't always think that way, but when it's looking at you in the face and you're looking at this, what's going on, it's like, well, and then when you explain the situation, I'm not gonna get into all that. Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, yeah. Sometimes you don't need to be with somebody for 10 months or even 6 months or even 3 months to figure it out. If
Mhm.
you keep your mind open and, 4 or 5 dates, you're dating them and whatever, you'll see it. It'll come through. It'll come through.
Right. And if all you see is fire, it's not your fault that you just recognize smoke.
Yeah,
Like if you don't know what water is, you don't know what being hydrated, what it feels good, what looks good, all you know is chaos. You don't
mm,
know how to define or identify when it's not. You're
right,
looking for those triggers because that's all you know?
right,
So like it's unfair to force someone to look at it through a point of view and a lens that they've never had an experience with,
right.
and when you're in class, when you're being taught because you go through so much therapy I chose a very therapeutic route to make
Mhm.
sure that I healed from this because I didn't want to
That's a
carry it on
great
to my
idea.
kid.
Mhm.
That I think for me, I was taught on this is what abuse looks like. That when you go into relationships, all you're looking for is abuse
Mm,
because you're not taught, people are going to be frustrated, but it's taking the time to do this. or they're going to get annoyed. They can't call you names though. If they do call you a name, you talk about it. If they don't see any accountability, what does that look like? What does narcissism look like? What is,
That's
all
another
these
whole, we gotta do
different.
a podcast on narcissism. We got a few of those waiting to be done too, but that's like huge, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So you're just looking
recognizing
at,
it, and recognizing that what it is. A lot of people don't
Mhm.
know. They
And then
don't.
what's your threshold, right? What is your baseline? Are you easily persuaded that maybe this isn't bad? I can forgive. What does forgiveness look like to you?
Mm,
Nobody should get hit, right?
right,
Point blank, period. Don't get hit. But if your threshold is, well, it didn't hurt that much, I
right.
mean, it's not their fault.
No.
I remember
Well,
explaining to my cousin
yeah, well,
because
that's
she
a
would
big
tell
deal.
me, I hate your boyfriend. She would say, I hate your boyfriend. And I told her, you have to see it how I see it. Some parents choose to spank their children to teach them right from wrong. He chooses to spank me to teach me right from wrong. That's how I defended
Wow.
this guy.
Yeah, well, you were a victim. Sorry, but that was a victim. That was a victim's mindset. And that's what you
Yeah.
do, right? You make the excuse for them and you try
You
to correct.
justify for yourself though.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, are you really, if you look at it, are you really making an excuse for him? Are you justifying it for yourself? Because what does that end up looking like? If I don't justify my staying, then I look weak, I look stupid, I look like an idiot, I look like a bad mom.
Mhm.
I look like these people. So I have to protect myself too, because now victim shaming is so apparent that we don't even recognize when we do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. No, it's crazy. Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
So interesting. Great story. Great story.
Thank
Now
you.
also a little question that you breaking stereotypes in previous as a previous teen mom and a Latino entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Could you explain that to me?
Well, I think, well, for me, right?
Yeah, we'll go back. It's kind of going back a little bit. But that's okay.
Yeah,
You did write
I
that in.
think,
Like that. Let's talk about that.
I, I think that the hardest part was, first was keeping my kids because that's always the first thing out of certain people's moms, a certain mouth is get rid of it. You're a kid. What are you doing?
Mm. Get rid of your
So
kids.
yeah, to
Oh,
get an
wow. Okay.
abortion or to adopt,
I got you.
and I was like, absolutely not. That's, well, you're gonna
I
look
never
like a
thought.
whore. You're gonna look like you're not gonna get your life together. I did. I went to school. I finished high school. I went to college. I knew what I wanted, and I was gonna find resources to get to what I needed to get to.
Very good move on you.
Absolutely, there was no way. Was it harder? Yeah, but I think I would have been probably running amok anyway. I think my kids grounded me, because it gives you another focus. I never
Yes.
had family, so I got to build the family I always needed and wanted. But the stereotype that I think I broke is that I didn't use it as an excuse. I never let it define me, my situation. All it did was it was a part of me, right?
Right.
Because my kids, it wasn't an obstacle. It
Well,
wasn't anything like that.
but you didn't play a victim either.
Not in that.
By you know, defining yourself, you picked yourself up. So
Hmm.
you weren't stereotyped, right? You picked yourself
Yeah,
up
I was
and
gonna break that.
you
A
did break
hundred
it.
percent.
You did break it.
I did.
And
I
look what
did
you've
break it.
become, right? So you did break it. You
I
succeeded.
did break it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
Um, and so I think another piece is being you don't see a lot of Latinos, like Latinas, women entrepreneurs, especially in the mental health field.
Hmm.
It's just we don't talk about it. The Latino community, we don't talk about mental health. Abuse is so prevalent in our community. It's part
Okay.
of it's not unheard of to say, oh yeah, my dad used to hit my mom, or my dad was aggressive to my mom, or my mom was aggressive to her, my dad. My mom used to call my dad this, that, and the other. It's not unusual. It is very common to have a very dirty language when describing your partner in I'm Mexican, so in the Mexican community.
Okay.
So it's not shocking.
Mm.
So being in an interracial marriage, which is another like, oh, my God, what are you thinking? That was difficult bringing children in that were mixed, but also pursuing my goals and my dreams. Just going to school, I was told I was an idiot for going to school because you have 2 kids, now you're gonna go to school, what are you gonna
Isn't
do?
that
You're
funny how they turn that around?
Mhm.
You were an idiot to go to school? No,
Yeah, it was because I was wasting time not making money. Because
wow.
what is it? Life is about what you can buy, what you can get, how you can be independent. It's not about fulfilling dreams.
Well, it sounded like you were supposed to be raised that you just live for the moment and just live.
Mhm.
What's that? There's a
Handle
saying for
business
that.
and live.
Yeah, just to live, just be and almost like, I don't wanna say it's like putting yourself down, making it think that because of who
Lower
you
myself.
are or your nationality, that you can't be anything more.
Mhm.
And that to me is heart-wrenching, because I hear
Mhm.
that from a lot of women that went through
Mhm.
that because of they can't be this or they can't be that, especially women. And to me,
Yeah.
that's horrible. And yeah, you broke the stereotype. And I think
And
we do.
and as a woman, I think you maybe have heard this, the narrative that everything is so much harder for us because we're a woman, or
Yeah.
because we're Latino, or because we're African American, or because we're this, that, and the other, right? But for me, I don't accept that narrative. It might be an obstacle, it might be something that is challenging, but I'm not going to accept that because I can't change being a woman and I sure can't change being Mexican, but I am going to use it
Well, just for
to,
the record,
okay.
my best friend is Mexican, just for the record.
Oh, good. So you're
She
around us.
it's funny when you come when you're because you're coming to Orlando, you have to meet her. She lives across the street, and it's so funny because she's my best
I
friend. I
can't
go to the
wait.
movie, and it's I don't I'm Italian, so maybe, we got a little something going on there, but I
Yeah.
just, I just I don't look at it like that. I don't look at people what they are, their nationality, and say, "Oh, well, they're this or that." I don't care what anybody is, we just
Right.
I think part of that could be because of I'm, a descendant like, my grandparents are from Italy, so when they
Mhm.
settled years ago, I mean, they had their, stuff, hundreds of, things that they had going on as well. So I don't know if that
Mhm.
has anything to do with it, but, you know.
I think I think how I hear your story, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have pride. Like, I want people to see that I'm Mexican. I want you to see me because that's
Oh,
who I
yeah,
am.
I agree with that, I agree.
But it doesn't change. It doesn't create any difference between whether I'm going to be have respect for you or not. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? And I think
Yes.
that's where people struggle with that when they look at me at being Mexican, or they automatically think I'm sassy, or they think like I have a whole bunch of kids, which I do, but or that you have
Yeah, but
this, that,
that's
or
well, listen, that's a stereotype. Same thing. Hey,
yeah,
Italian was the same way. I mean, I don't have
yeah.
the type. I grew up
It's
Italian, but it was like, oh, meatballs, spaghetti. Like, I don't eat
yeah,
meatballs. Oh, you must eat a lot of spaghetti. No, I don't eat spaghetti every day. Oh, how you not? So there's a they do stereotype you, and they
yeah.
do, and it was always well with myself. It was more mafia. It's like, it was
That's what
like,
I was gonna ask. Yeah.
yeah, see, you're stereotyping me.
No,
Yes.
no, you know why? Because I always think that they think immediately when they think of Italians, they think of the mafia, or they think of this certain language or this lingo, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this
That's what it's
energy, and
I
it's
think we
like,
all have a certain
oh,
amount, but I don't care, like I said, I don't care what people are. I don't I don't care. I just don't. I just take people for who they are. And I learn from that too, whether they're Greek or what have you. I love the culture. I love Greek food. No, so it's like I look at that like, "Oh, I'm gonna learn more."
yeah.
I don't know. I
See,
love
I
it.
love
I
that.
love it.
But some people see it as like, I don't know.
Hey, Irish, St.
So,
Patrick's Day is coming up. I got all kinds of stuff for St. Patrick's Day. We got this event. Look at my nails are green. So it's like I'm Italian, but I'm like, oh, I don't care. I'm Irish. That day we're all Irish. Hey, Cinco de
yeah,
Mayo,
that
we're all
day, bro.
Mexican.
I love that.
Columbus
I
Day, we're
love
all
that.
Italian. No, yeah, yeah, it's all good stuff.
Yeah. See,
But that's
everything
you
is
have to be
good,
like that. I do. It's
Yeah.
fun.
But for someone to say like, oh, I don't see race, I just see you. Like, that's not true because you should see my race, just
I
like you
well,
see
you
my
do see
heart.
their race, but you don't. It's not a point of. I like to learn from that.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel, and that's kind of like and I think that's how we feel, right? We wanna learn. I do, I like to learn from
Hmm.
other people's, race, religion, and whatnot. So I find that
Absolutely.
interesting, but it's all good stuff. Yay. So when you
Yeah,
come,
I
we'll
know.
talk about that later when you come to Orlando.
Yeah, I'm excited. I come in June for a week. Well,
Okay,
we're going to Margaritaville, and then we're going to go to Orlando. What is it?
well, have
Universal
you
and
been
the
here?
one.
Have you been to Disney
Uh-uh.
or Orlando? Oh my gosh, you might wanna move here.
Hmm. I went to Clearwater, Florida. That wasn't fun.
No,
Nope.
no, you're gonna Orlando's more. like the speed that we
Diverse?
like. Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah,
different it's a different vibe. Tampa's a totally
okay.
different vibe. I'm not knocking it because I can't. Better not do that. But no, it's Orlando is a totally different vibe. Yeah, you're gonna love
Okay, cool.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, because I was like, "Oh, I don't think I wanna go back to Florida."
okay, what didn't we cover that we wanna talk about? I mean, anything else you wanna talk about before we wrap it up? You can,
Um,
that you wanna, other than your podcast, if you have a website, anything like that? Yeah,
well,
just
you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We don't have a website just yet. Um,
okay. And what is the name
uh,
of your podcast so they can find you?
Family on Lock. So basically, it just means like we got family on lock.
Family Unlocked. www.familyunlocked.com?
It's family and then on lock,
Oh, family.
LOCK.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I'll get that from you also because you can always put that in a little notation.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Wow. Well, Erica, it was great meeting you. Great conversation. Looking forward to meeting you in person. And
Yeah,
thanks again for coming on. Any last words you'd like to share with listeners?
I just want everybody to believe in themselves. Whatever they want to,
Nice.
they can dream, you can achieve it.
Yeah. And dreaming costs nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Go for it. There's what else are you gonna do
I
with your
know.
time?
Tell me that.
That's what I tell myself when I'm because I'm in the program. It's gonna take me 5 years. I got about two, three
Okay.
more years, and I always tell myself, well, what else am I gonna do with my time?
And that goes fast. And it
It
does
goes
go
fast.
fast. So
It
that's
goes
it. Follow
fast.
your dreams too. Yeah. Whatever you want to do,
Yeah,
don't ever think of time. And I do tell people that when I hear like they think about, oh, I'm going back to school doing this. Oh, it's going to be 3 years of free. I'm like, oh God, that's nothing. It goes
it's nothing.
so fast. Scary.
So fast.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
fast. And don't let age stop you. I think
Oh God,
you
hell
could do
no.
anything. Yeah, you could do anything. I hate that too. Society
Oh, I
puts us
loved you
in
brought
such a
that up. No,
box.
I totally agree with that. Oh no, you and
Such a box.
I don't like when people talk about that all the time. They're like, oh, with age, you're getting older. So I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
care. Don't
No,
even
I don't
think
want to
about it.
hear that.
I don't
Thank
either.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take
I
that, go
love that you're
somewhere
like that
else.
too. So ridiculous.
We're not ready.
Because all they're doing is like putting a timestamp on us. Like, I don't need
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I don't need
Yes.
that.
And then when you think
I
about
don't-
the age you complained about or said, "Oh, no, we're getting too old, we're getting too," when 5 years from that, you think, "Oh god, I was young." I was
Yeah.
that
Yeah. And do I want to do my 20s again? Hell no. I
No.
would
Oh,
do my
heck no.
20s again if I had my money now.
I won't do my 30s either.
Yeah. Hmm.
Let's just say like 48.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm
But
just learning
I
so
missed
much
that.
now that I'm approaching 40. I'm just learning so much and I'm excited about things and I have a different kind of energy. I
Yeah.
know what to say yes to, I know what to say no to.
Yeah.
I find things so much more precious and important to me.
Mm.
I know you can do anything. Whatever
Yes.
you set your mind to, you could truly do it.
You
It
can
can
do anything.
happen like that.
Yes. You can do anything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
thank you again for being on Storytime with Ellie podcast, where we say everybody has a story. What's yours?